So, you want to get into the pedal game, but don't know where to start. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what your first pedal should be. It's a tuner. Haha! Just kidding. Actually, a tuner would be a good first pedal to get because no matter how much fancy gear you have, if you're not in tune, it's just not going to sound good. But tuners aren't fun. We're here to have fun. So let's talk about the other first pedal that you need to get. Of course, I'm talking about an overdrive pedal, y'all. Overdrive is the perfect first step into entering the pedal world when you want to explore new frontiers of your guitar tone. Now, I'm not going to dive into the specifics on how overdrive works and what it does on a scientific level to your signal chain. There are plenty of excellent videos explaining how all that works. I'm more of a overdrive for dummies kind of guy, so I'm actually just going to demonstrate to you so you can hear for yourself what it can do for your tone. I'm also not going to sit here and tell you which overdrive I think you should buy. This isn't a sponsored video or anything like that, but I am going to share with you insight that I've picked up over years of trial and error and expensive mistakes and impulse purchases that have led me to finally have the right mindset when deciding what type of overdrive pedal I should buy when I'm ever on the market for one. So I'm going to share that with you to give you the guidance that you need so you can block out all that extra noise and focus on exactly what you need for your specific guitar sound. With that said, the overdrive pedal I'll be demonstrating with today is the nobs ODR Mini. I love this pedal. It's one of my favorite flavors of overdrive, and it's relatively inexpensive and has just 3 controls. So it's really, really simple and straightforward. It's not something you got to spend an entire afternoon figuring out, you know. So this isn't one of those head scratcher kind of pedals. It's pretty bare bones. So right now I'm running my PRS McCarty into a Mojo Tone Blackout Deluxe, which is based on a modded Fender Tweed circuit, mic'd up with a Sennheiser E609, and here's my clean tone. Always wanted to say that. So here's what happens when we turn on the pedal. Big difference in sound. So if that's your first time ever hearing the overdrive effect, that's what it does to your sound, right? It's much better to just show you than to try and explain it with words. And a quick side note, a good rule of thumb when you're trying out a new overdrive pedal is to set all of the knobs at noon, just like this, right? So that all the dials are pointed up, just like noon on a clock, right? That's a good starting point because when you get a new pedal, you're getting acquainted with it. You're figuring out, you know, what it's doing for your sound, and you're getting to know what kind of sounds it can give you. So that's just a good starting point. It's not something you want to really settle on because even if it sounds really good with everything at noon, it might sound even better if you spend some time tweaking it. So what we're going to do is start here, right? And we're going to go through each individual control and see what it can do to our sound. Now, taking a quick look at the controls on this pedal, we have drive, volume, and spectrum. Now, if you don't understand what any of those words mean, that's okay. There's a lot of buzzwords when it comes to guitar tone, and it can get a little confusing, but at the end of the day, you should trust your ear. Your ear is way more intuitive than you think, and when you have a sound in your head, when you imagine yourself at the fullest extent of your guitar abilities, right? Whether it's on stage or playing for friends or whatever, that sound you hear in your head is achievable because that sound is most likely based on sounds that you have heard that have inspired you, right, to even pick up guitar in the first place. So these are all tools to get you closer to finding that sound that you hear in your head. All right, enough rambling. Let's see what these controls can do for us. So I'm going to start with drive. I'm just going to sweep the knob, play the open low E string, and let's listen to what it's doing for our sound. Okay, so right there, you could probably hear, right, that it was adding and subtracting saturation, right, or distortion, overdrive, grit, whatever you want to call it, just like that big rock and roll sound. That's what I like to call it, right, which is kind of dumb, but whatever, I like it. So when I think about drive, right, I think about how saturated do I want my tone to be. Generally, I like something, you know, at or around noon. And it also depends on how much overdrive is on tap. You know, some pedals will have more overdrive on tap, you know, more gain on tap, or more drive on tap, right? It's all the same thing. They're all synonymous words, right? And in that case, you may want to dial back, or if it doesn't have enough drive, you may want to add more to compensate. So this is not like a high gain heavy metal sort of pedal, but this is great for pretty much any other style, you know, from rock to blues to country, you know, to pop. I mean, this is a great pedal. Even, you know, praise and worship music, you know, this is a very prolific pedal for those type of styles. So I'm gonna keep the drive, right, at around noon. So let's talk about volume. Volume's pretty self-explanatory, but what you want to try and do is find something called unity gain. And what that means is the volume of your bypass tone or your clean tone, right, is matched up with the volume you're getting from the pedal. Because what you don't want to do is have a clean tone that's like really loud, for example, you know. And then let's say, let's dial the volume back on this. Then when you turn your drive pedal on, it's just quieter, right? You lose a lot of, you just lose something, right? Just, the clean is much louder. So what we want to do, we want to find unity gain. So on every pedal is going to be different. So you want to spend time figuring that out. So I like to just, you know, play an open string, like I'll just play the open A string and turn the pedal on and off and then just kind of dial it accordingly. So right around there, which is just slightly above noon, it sounds to me like that's a good unity gain. You know what? Maybe even a little more. Maybe even a lot more. When I was playing chords, I could kind of hear the difference a lot more. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, so around here seems to work for unity gain. Now let's take a look at the spectrum knob. Now this is going to influence the EQ character, right? We're thinking bass, middle, and treble, or like bass, low, mid, high, mid, treble, you know, EQ. So this is something to consider. You know, on a lot of drive pedals, you'll find a control labeled tone, which is similar to what spectrum does. But, you know, like I said, every pedal is a little bit different. Now, if you can't really hear the difference, that's okay. That's usually in the beginning, you're not going to. So this is not something that you want to rack your brain over, because it's going to take some time for you to develop the sort of sensitivity, the auditory sensitivity to frequencies. That's really just going to take time. It's not something you can just learn right away. I don't think you can be born with something like that, but what do I know, right? All I know is for me, it took me a long time to even really hear the difference between low mids and high mids. You know, it took me forever. So don't stress about that. Just, again, like, experiment and then see what it does to the sound. So here we go. I'm gonna play the open A string and I'm gonna sweep the knob and let's see what it does. Okay, so right there, you could hear when I would go counterclockwise or cut it, right? It would, the sound would kind of get warmer and you'd lose a lot of top end, but then as I boosted it and went up, I was getting a lot more treble, right? It started to get a lot brighter. So that should just tell you what the spectrum, right, of EQ characteristics you can get with that one particular knob. So I like a decent balance, but I like to err on the side of bright. So I'm gonna just boost it a tad bit, maybe line it up with where volume's at. And you know what? I'm gonna boost the gain just a little bit too. And I think right there would be a pretty good sweet spot for someone like me, right? Another little thing I was doing there was seeing how the pedal responds to pick attack. So when I play it hard, it gives me what I need, right? But when I play it soft, it softens up. The volume was on, everything was on 10 as far as like the knobs on my guitar. I didn't change any of those controls and I didn't change anything on the pedal, as you can see. But playing softly, still sounds quite big, right? It doesn't sound clean, but it's definitely a lot less gritty than like... Big difference, right? To me, a hallmark of a good overdrive pedal is how it responds to dynamics like that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna play a little bit and I'm gonna mess with the controls, mostly drive and spectrum, since volume is one of those things where we found unity gain, we can set it and forget it. So I'm just gonna mess around with how the tone is colored, you could say, right? How it's coloring my clean tone, and try out different things, different positions of the spectrum knob, different amounts of drive, and actually, let you hear it in the context of playing as opposed to just playing an open string.
So I hope you can forgive all the mindless noodling, but what I was trying to demonstrate was the range that that pedal is able to give me with this current rig that I'm working with. And it's exactly what I would advise you to do when you're trying out a new overdrive pedal, is just play. It doesn't matter what level you're at, just play how you play, right? And reference that against the kind of sounds you're getting. And then just focus on one control at a time, tweak it a little bit, figure out, like, do you like a more warm, kind of sound, or do you like something more bright and like bitey? Or do you prefer less gain, more gain? All of that stuff is very important for you to take mental inventory of. So you know exactly, what you should look for when you go out and actually spend money on an overdrive pedal. And I say that because even if you already own an overdrive pedal, chances are you're going to want to own another one at some point. It happens to all of us. There are a lot of different flavors of overdrives out there. What you should do is do some due diligence and kind of find out the different families, right? They're almost like food groups, right? Of different overdrive sounds, because some overdrives, have certain characteristics compared to others. But if you want to help narrow it down so that you're not obsessing over, all these different overwhelming amount of options that you have, is think about your favorite guitar players, the ones that inspired you based on their tone. And also think about how you want to sound, right? What is like the apex tone you hear yourself having, right? When you think about like that moment when you're at that point in your guitar playing journey where you're just like, everything is great, just like that thing that we all strive for, right? What is that sound and how does it relate to guitar players that have already blazed that tone trail for us, and figure out like what were they using and try to, do something similar basically. For example, if you're a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, you're probably gonna really like tube screamers because he famously used those. So it's just like lining yourself up with your favorite guitar players and their, your favorite guitar sounds, finding out what gear they use, and don't obsess over exactly what they use, but let it be kind of a guidepost for you to figure out and narrow down what type of sounds and what type of flavors you're going for. So that right there is my crash course on overdrive, which I think is the very first pedal that you should own. And to top your newfound knowledge with gear, I'm gonna give you something that's actually gonna be super helpful for your guitar playing. And it is this right here. It's a free guitar cheat sheet that's gonna show you how to instantly solo in any key. You're gonna have an unlimited amount of guitar licks to use when you're trying out your overdrive pedals. So be sure to click here to claim that copy for yourself or check the link in the description box. And if you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, and be sure to check out our other relevant lessons right over here. I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson in gear as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.